Today, we're continuing the page we started last week in Kerby Rosane's Mythomorphia. We colored this buff merman, which I named Brad, and he's just sort of floating out there in white space. So today, we're coloring in the background and giving him some water to swim in. And I'm going to show you how, all in real time, so stick around. Hello, colorists! Before we get started, I just have to point out how glittery my nails look in this light. I'm not normally a glittery nail sort of person, but this is just too pretty not to enjoy. All right, enough about my nails. The first thing that I want to mention today is my pencil sharpener. Now, as many of you know, I've come to use the Prismacolor pencil sharpener, and it's this one right here. And I've been having an issue with my pencil tips being a little bit fragile lately, kind of, breaking off, right after I sharpen them, and it's truly really annoying. So someone in the comments actually suggested that this one might be dull. It might be time for a new one, and I quite agree. So a new Prismacolor colored pencil sharpener is on its way. So just a tip for you guys, if you're struggling with your fragile pencil tips, it might be time for a new sharpener. All right, onto our background here. I'm going to be using a lot of the same colors that I've already used on my page, but we're going to be adding in just a few new ones, mix it up a little bit, as I want the background to be cohesive with the rest of the page, but I also want it to recede a bit and let the main focus be front and center. So the first step of what I'm doing is actually a background layer to our background layer. It'll be a series of soft bands of color laid down in very fluid shapes. I'm trying to simulate the appearance that we're underwater. So I'm going to be laying down light layers of super pale light greens, light blues, medium blues, all the way to dark blues, kind of at the bottom of our page, throwing in some peacock blue, kind of a teal along the way. And I'm just sandwiching these right up against one another, doing my best to feather or blend the transition area in between by overlapping them slightly. However, don't worry about making that transition super smooth at this point, as again, this is just our first foundational layer, and we're going to have an opportunity to blend that out better later on in our steps. Now, as you switch colors, try to vary the shape and the width of each ribbon of color. It'll make them look a lot more natural, like we're really underwater. You don't want them too uniform. So you'll see I'm switching up the colors quite a bit. Now the blues themselves will blend into one another quite a bit later on, but I'm hoping that these greens stay nice and light. So I'm adding those in strategic places to break up those blues. And here I added kind of a V shape of light green there amongst the blues. So it doesn't have to be singular ribbons of color. In fact, I really like the way that it looks when you mix it up a bit. I'm also being semi-careful to at least have the ribbons all directionally kind of go in at the same angle. Again, you don't want it to look too uniform, but some direction is good. And again, we'll have the opportunity to break that up in the later steps. And now when all of your white space has been filled, mine came out looking like this. Now it's time to take on our next step. And this time, I'll be adding in additional ribbons of color, but these will be different. I want these to be thinner, more crisp edges, so I'm going to take my pencil and draw in a squiggly line. Then I'm going to draw in its mate, but I'm not going to follow that same line exactly. I'm going to kind of let it weave in and out of the first, kind of giving it that twisted ribbon look. Then we'll fill in the gaps with our pencil. Now I'm using that same approach again, where I try to keep these moving in kind of relatively the same direction, while still having some fun with the shapes and not letting them become kind of those singular ribbons. I'm branching them off into unique shapes. I'm also going back into that original background layer and layering in some additional color, feathering it into those new thinner ribbons. And I'm just kind of trusting my gut on this one, looking for places that I think it needs it. Just a side note, I am sorry that I had to break up Brad into two videos here. The initial drawn in portion took a very long time to color, as I was really taking my time on those curly bubble waves behind him, and time really got away from me on this one. Plus, I knew I wanted to do something special with the background here, something that would too take a lot of time, and I didn't want to shortchange you. So my apologies, but look on the bright side, you got to stare at Brad for two videos, not just one. Now, the look I was going for here was that kind of top level, like wavy, watery look. But when it was done, it also reminded me of agate, those kind of cross sections of those real pretty rocks that you see. Just very, very natural veining, cool shapes. So I was pretty happy with the way that this was coming along. And then this happened. Baby oil. Now, I knew I wanted to blend the background. That was the game plan from the start, but I don't know what happened. I tried to put just a very, very small amount of baby oil on my Q-tip and then wipe almost all of it off on my paper towel, but the result that I got when I put Q-tip to paper was as if it was saturated, so I really, really don't know what happened here. So at this point, I'm kind of bummed. I had to walk away. Actually walked away for a few hours, like determined not to worry about it. Perhaps I could formulate a plan to address it. Didn't know, couldn't worry about it. I just couldn't look at all of this saturated mess. But thankfully, when I came back those few hours later, it had dried and I had a game plan. Now, this was not going to be one of those relegated to the oops bins for later kind of lessons learned videos. I was determined to save this. Now, the game plan was to press on, finish the bright teal mess that I had going on in my hands here, and then be really, really careful around the light green areas so as not to drag any teal into it. And then I want to break out a secret weapon, my Derwent electric eraser. Now, I don't know if this is going to work, but I'm determined to try to save this. So I proceeded to run my electric eraser along those thin ribbons that I had created, pulling up some of that color. And by God, it worked. I actually really liked the texture and the shapes that I was getting with my eraser. It looked very water-like. Now, this wasn't the original intention, wasn't what I had pictured in my head for it from the get-go, but I was actually really just happy that I was able to save the page at this point. So I did that same technique on both sides of the page, and I decided to play up those interesting shapes even more on the left side of the page where I had a bit more room to play with. And actually, I like how this left side came out even more than the right. By messing up a bit on the right side, I was able to alter my technique slightly on this side and be a bit more ginger with my baby oil. And that was it. Page saved. Well, at least saved in my eyes. Like I said, it wasn't what I had originally pictured this looking like. I sort of wanted to keep it softer like it was before I had blended it, but oh well. I'm still really, really happy with it, and it's a background technique that I haven't tried yet, so it's kind of fun trying new things. And I think it's a fitting world for Brad. Thank you guys for watching today. You are all just the best. I love seeing your comments, so keep those coming. And please smash that like button. It really helps me out a ton. I think YouTube's doing something kind of screwy lately with the algorithm, so I would also love it if you guys would share this video or my channel in general with a friend who might also enjoy it. I'll see you guys next week, and until then, happy coloring. Bye!